Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anna Kalczyńska, and on behalf of the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Poland, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this ceremony of awarding the Lech Wałęsa Solidarity Prize. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored today by the presence of distinguished guests, so please join me in welcoming Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Irma Santos de Mas, the prominent figure of the Cuban American Society in Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, what a fine moment. We gather today out of gratitude and in a sense of responsibility. If it weren't for the steadfast policies and historic support and leadership of US President Ronald Reagan, if it wasn't for the moral support and guidance of Polish Pope John Paul II, and the courageous stance of once anonymous Polish worker Lech Wałęsa, the Polish society would not have gained independence, would not have achieved a peaceful regime change in 1989. Poles are acutely aware of the high cost of liberty. After 44 years of communism and Soviet dominance, at the end of the 20th century, we were offered a chance of peace and a chance that we took. We stood free, finally, at last. We embraced that chance while keeping in mind the moral call of John Paul II. Be not afraid, and with liberty comes responsibility. It is in this very spirit that the Deputy Prime Minister, at that time, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski, established this very prize, the Solidarity Prize, in 2014. Let me quote shortly one of the most outstanding leaders in the US history, Ronald Reagan. For make no mistake, in a world where so many are hostile to freedom, where millions live in poverty and oppression, those few nations that share the right of liberty must stand together. For together we can pierce the darkness and shed our light over all the earth. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege now to invite to the stage Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Poland, Radosław Sikorski.
Dear Chairman of the Chapter, Secretary of State, Excellencies, distinguished guests. 45 years ago, the workers of the Lenin shipyard in Gdańsk did something extraordinary. They went on strike not only to demand the rise in wages, but to demand a representation. They said to the Communist Party, despite your ideology, you do not represent us. What we need in Communist Poland is a free and independent trade union. And as a result of the strike at the Lenin shipyard and all over Poland, they got that. And the leader of that strike was Lech Wałęsa, a world historical figure who happens to be in the United States right now. We have with us his son representing his father. And Lech Wałęsa has become a symbol of non-violent and successful struggle for liberty. Struggle for freedom, democracy, and liberation from communist oppression that was imposed by the Soviet Union on Poland and other European countries at the end of World War II. Solidarity, the name of the trade union, and a word that we hold holy in Poland. The mass protest movement founded in 1980, survived despite the imposition of martial law a year later and other repressions, eventually leading to democratic elections and a peaceful transfer of power. Events in Poland triggered a virtuous domino and were followed by the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Iron Curtain, and then the fall of the Soviet Union itself. Lech Wałęsa was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1983. He was awarded it as an appreciation of what he had already done, but also as a sign of encouragement and a means of supporting his struggle for liberty. Thank God he was not alone. Friends around the world lent us Poles a helping hand on our path to democracy. After martial law was imposed, President Ronald Reagan, already mentioned deservedly, showed his solidarity with us by lighting a candle in the window of the White House on Christmas Eve 1981 and encouraged Americans to do the same. January 30th, 1982 was declared Solidarity Day with Poland. We remember it very well and appreciate it. The Polish democratic opposition received not only spiritual but also material support from the United States, and I believe this was money very well invested. We made good use of this assistance, and that's why we are today in a position to help others. As already mentioned, established in 2014, the Lech Wałęsa Solidarity Prize, $1 million zlotys, which is around $300,000 today, is an award for outstanding achievements in defending democracy, human rights, and civil liberties. Its past laureates include Mustafa Dżemilev, the leader of the Crimean Tatars, Zhanna Nemtsova, a journalist and activist, daughter of the Russian dissident Boris Nemtsov, assassinated in the vicinity of the Kremlin. And just recently, Paweł Latuszka, a Belarusian dissident and pro-democracy advocate. Today, it is my privilege and honor to present this award to an extraordinary person whose courage, resilience, and dedication have made her a symbol of freedom and dignity in Cuba and beyond. Berta Soler Fernandez. There are actually some striking parallels between the life and struggles of today's laureate with that of Lech Wałęsa. Berta Soler could not come to receive the award, just like Lech Wałęsa couldn't go to receive his Nobel Peace Prize. For the same reason, actually. Both of them could not be sure to be allowed to go back home. Devotion to their homeland is a fundamental value for both of them. Berta Soler's attitude, like Wałęsa, is unwavering, systematic, and peaceful. She joined protests against the 2003 imprisonment of over 70 Cubans arrested for so-called counter-revolutionary activities. Berta's husband, Angel Moya Acosta, was one of them. Together with the wives and mothers of other detainees, she protested by praying for them during Sunday masses and then, dressed in white, marching along Havana's Fifth Avenue. Lech Wałęsa also drew his strength from faith, which he saw as a moral guidepost. Thanks to Ladies in White's tenacity as well as international support, the last prisoners arrested in 2003 were released in 2011. Many were forced to emigrate. Berta and Angel remained in Cuba. They have carried on despite repressions. There is at least one more similarity between these two unique figures, Soler and Wałęsa. They are extraordinary yet ordinary people, regular folks who took on an exceptionally heavy burden and did not buckle under the weight, who became political because their countries were not free. By honoring Berta Soler with the Lech Wałęsa Solidarity Award, we pay tribute to her, to ladies in white, and to all Cubans on the island and beyond who are demanding the rights to have a say in the future of their homeland. Many of them now live here in Miami. They have not forgotten their roots, no matter when their families left Cuba, or how successful they have become in the US. The presence of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants and now a high official in this country, is yet another proof that the fight for freedom never ends. Marco, thank you very much for joining us.
First of all, thank you very much. Thank you for doing this here. I was telling the foreign minister, who I have met now, I've been there like 8 months. I've seen you like 12 times. So we see each other, well, never in the States, but around the world. I was explaining a little bit about the historic nature of this hotel. This is a very young city, relatively speaking. So I said, this is an old hotel by our standards, not by Polish standards or European standards. But it's also a place that over the years has hosted many events such as this, events geared towards the cause of freedom and liberty around the world. I've come here to many different events that have been about freedom and liberty, but obviously especially about Cuba. And I say about the age of the hotel because it's hard to believe, as you were walking through the examples of Lech Wałęsa and the Polish experience, that communism is still a scourge. That it's still, despite its failure everywhere it's been tried, despite not just its economic failure, but its social failure, its destructive influence that it has on every society it's ever touched, it still remains a presence in different pockets of the world. And for those of us who live in this community, and who have been raised in this community, just 90 miles from our shores. Now, what I'm about to say is not a criticism of anybody. I have never lived in an oppressive regime. Some of you have, but many of us have never lived or been the target of political oppression at the level that is faced in Cuba. And so I don't mean this as a criticism to anyone, but frankly, many times the moment comes where it's just easier to leave. It's easier to leave the country. Sometimes you're forced to do so by force. Other times you travel abroad and are allowed to return. What has always struck me about Berta Soler and those who join her is that she has refused to leave. Again, this is not a criticism of those who have left, because it's perfectly understandable that there comes a moment where perhaps you can be more successful and more effective from the outside than you are from the inside. But her refusal to leave, her refusal to continue to live under the conditions that she lives under, which are incredibly oppressive, that deny her the basic rights, including the right to go to church every Sunday, is a source of incredible admiration for all of us. It's something we should all deeply admire and appreciate. She is, despite, I think those of us who are involved in the cause of freedom and liberty know exactly who she is and what she's been about. I think more people need to know about what she's done, about how inspirational she is. You said something in your comments was exactly right. This was not a political person. Frankly, political activism in Cuba is not something that's encouraged or rewarded unless you're active on behalf of the regime and their so-called fake revolution. Her willingness to step forward because she identified and saw oppression, she saw wrongdoing, and was willing not just to raise her voice to criticize it, but to actually take action against it in a peaceful way, has defined the rest of her life and imposed on her a tremendous cost for those and for those around her. Now, I do think that part of today's credit needs to go to so many who have supported her in this endeavor. And we're so grateful for your support to her now. And not just the prize that comes with it, which will certainly be put to good use, but just saying the name and telling the story in front of these cameras, in front of this audience, and in a way hopefully be noticed by more, is an incredible sign to so many that of what she's done and how special it truly is. Freedom is not actually a natural human instinct. If you think and you study history, almost the entirety of human history has been defined by oppression. Few people up until just a couple hundred years ago even had a choice on who governed them. So if you look at the course of human history, freedom as we understand it, the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, all these freedoms that I think we take for granted on a daily basis in our own lives are really not the norm. They've been the exception. Now, what it tells you is that it lives in the human spirit, but has not been a part of the human behavior. And it's only in the last 200 to 300 years, this very sort of new notion of rights that come from your creator, from God. Rights that governments that actually work for the people, not the people that work for the government. The right to actually be able to have a voice and choose who governs over you. All these are incredibly new concepts. And what is true about human nature is that they are constantly being challenged. Over and over again, all over the world, time and again, we see that even when you make progress in democracy and in freedom, they have to be sustained and they have to endure. Where we draw our inspiration to do that is from people like Berta Soler, who have confronted it. Look, again, I'm not being critical of anybody, but it is easier to be critical of a regime, like many of us are, on social media and in press releases. It's a lot harder to actually confront it in person with real consequences in your daily life. And so we're here today to honor what she's done and what she continues to do. In so many ways, this is not just a plaque, this is an award that will go towards being able to continue to carry that out. And we are so grateful and honored that you were willing to do that here in South Florida with so many in this community who know this issue so well, have lived it. In many cases, just looking around at some of the faces, there are people here today who have also faced down this regime, who have also faced down oppression in Cuba or in their homelands, and are living testaments to that level of bravery and courage. So thank you for scheduling this here, for making it possible for me to be a part of it. I'm honored to be a part of it. We're grateful. I want to say one more point, and it's important. Your government in Poland has been an extraordinary ally in the cause of liberty and freedom. There are other countries that were liberated from the yoke of tyranny and can be helpful from time to time, but there is none in the world that's been more helpful, more steadfast, and more aligned with us, including in Cuba, than the government of Poland. And so we are grateful. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we had a conversation just a few months ago about some events going on in Cuba. And I had asked for a favor. I'd asked the Polish government to help us with a few things globally and internationally. And it happened instantly and immediately. And it shows you that of all the nations in the world who have overcome the tyranny of communism, the one that most certainly hasn't forgotten what it took to overcome it and have raised their voice and taken action to be supportive of those who seek to overcome it is our allies and friends in Poland. So thank you. We're very grateful to all of you. And thank you all for being a part of this today. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, please stay with us here on stage. As we are approaching the central part of our ceremony, I will now invite the Deputy Minister, Mr. Foreign Affairs Radosław Sikorski, as well as Irma Santos de Mas, who will receive the prize on behalf of Berta Soler Fernandez.
As I have already mentioned, because of the oppression that she faces in her homeland, Berta Soler cannot be with us today. The award will be received on her behalf by her representative, Irma Santos de Mas. So please, on behalf of the foundation and on behalf of former President of Poland, Lech Wałęsa, please accept this award as a token of our solidarity with the Cuban people.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a pre-recorded acceptance speech by Berta Soler Fernandez. So let's have a listen.
Doy Gracias a Dios por este día. Estimados, Ministro de Relaciones Exteriores de Polonia, Radosław Sikorski, Secretario de los Estados Unidos, Marco Rubio, Directiva de la Fundación Cubano-Americana, Damas de Blanco, Premio Zagranicznych, representante de organizaciones anticastristas del exilio, invitados, distinguidos patriotas. Hoy no puedo estar junto a ustedes porque la tiranía comunista de Cuba me impone la salida sin retorno. Condición esta que no acepto, porque yo me quedo en Cuba. Hoy me siento honrada y agradecida por recibir el premio Les Wałęsa Solidaridad 2025. Las damas de blanco y yo les agradecemos al Ministerio de Asuntos Exteriores de la República de Polonia este reconocimiento, que a través de su ministro Radosław Sikorski hoy nos llega. Previo que es el resultado de 22 años de lucha en Cuba por la libertad de los presos políticos cubanos que injustamente están encarcelados por la tiranía comunista cubana y de lucha por los derechos y libertades de todos los cubanos junto a las damas de blanco, organización que hoy represento. Estimado Ministro de Relaciones Exteriores de la República de Polonia, la República de Polonia y la República de Cuba en sus historias tienen un punto común. Ambos pueblos han sufrido la opresión comunista. Polonia se libró del comunismo y fue protagonista en esta lucha el sindicato Solidaridad y su líder Les Wałęsa. Los cubanos continuamos luchando contra el comunismo. 66 años llevamos luchando contra la tiranía comunista. Muchos murieron asesinados en los paredones de fusilamiento de la tiranía. Muchos padecieron y hoy padecen largos años en prisión en Cuba por razones políticas. Entre otros presos políticos cubanos, Pedro Boité, Orlando Zapata Tamayo, Pablo Moya y Wilma Villar Mendoza. Murieron en huelga de hambre en las cárceles de la tiranía comunista cubana. Líderes, luchadores como Laura Boyán, Osvaldo Payán y Jaro Cepero, en mi opinión, fueron asesinados por agentes de la tiranía comunista. Hoy, en las cárceles cubanas hay más de 1,000 presos políticos. En su mayoría salieron a protestar pacíficamente el 11 de julio de 2021 contra la tiranía y la opresión impuesta por la tiranía cubana, Las damas de blanco, Sailí Naval y Cicia Bascal, ese día salieron junto al pueblo cubano. Hoy forman parte del presidio político cubano. Nosotras continuaremos luchando por la libertad de todos los presos políticos. Hoy en esta sala están presentes familiares y víctimas de la tiranía comunista cubana. También me honra la presencia de todos ustedes. El premio Les Wałęsa Solidaridad que hoy se me otorga es un reconocimiento también de los 66 años de lucha contra la tiranía comunista de Cuba. Y parte del mismo será destinado para reforzar los fondos de ayuda para los presos políticos cubanos y de las damas de blanco, creado por una organización en el exilio. La otra parte será compartido con las damas de blanco y, por supuesto, con mis familiares. Antes de concluir, hago una mención a Dorota Kołierowska, primera consejera política y económica de la Embajada de la República de Polonia en Cuba. Ella, durante muchos años, ha estado preocupada y ocupada por la situación de las damas de blanco y el pueblo de Cuba. Mil gracias, Les Wałęsa, por luchar contra el comunismo en Polonia, junto al Sindicato Solidaridad y al pueblo polaco. Mil gracias al Ministerio de Asuntos Exteriores de la República de Polonia por instituir el premio Les Wałęsa Solidaridad. Muchas gracias a todos y que Dios los bendiga.
Berta Soler Fernandez remains in house arrest with her phone confiscated. So let us think about the liberties that we may enjoy and let us reflect on her fate in Havana. Ladies and gentlemen, we haven't forget one important thing. I'm from the media, and I know well, so I will invite now Secretary Marco Rubio once again to the stage with the Deputy Prime Minister and with Irma de Santos for a picture, because as Secretaries of State rightly mentioned, it is important to talk about this event. It is important to talk about Berta Soler. So I'm from the media, so I know well. So 35 years ago in Poland, we achieved what many pessimists deemed impossible. We did it, and our transformation may serve as a beacon of hope for those who seek faith and hope in times of darkness. I think it's a good moment now to invite Radosław Wałęsa, the son of the former President Lech Wałęsa, to the stage, member of the Polish Parliament and representative of the Lech Wałęsa Foundation, to listen about his reflection.
Dear friends, maybe I should begin by apologizing for not being my father. I understand these are huge shoes to fill, but if you can bear with me for just a few minutes, I was inspired by Berta Soller's words just now, and I realized something very simple, yet something precious. On the one hand, we can disagree, we can argue, we can confront different ideas of how democracy should look like, how we should solve in a systemic fashion democracies in our individual countries. But in the end, if you think about it, everything begins with a very simple spark. And the same thing happened in Poland 45 years ago. And this spark was belief that the most important thing is human dignity. Human dignity and a free spirit is something that authoritarian regimes fear the most. It is because of it this struggle begins, and we should never forget it. Human dignity lies in the beginning of everything we do as politicians, as diplomats, as people who are trying to solve this world and make it a better place. So in the end, if we consider what is happening in today's world, that democracies may struggle or may be defined again in a modern world, it's something that we have to consider, we have to think about. But the most important thing is, and I'm very grateful that I'm here today, to be reminded that there are places like Cuba, there are people there who are denied this basic thing, the human dignity. And I'm grateful that we are gathered here today, and we're going to spread this word all over. I'm going to go back home in just a couple hours. I'm going to say that we need to do more. People living in the free societies tend to forget that it's our responsibility to support those who don't have the freedoms we take for granted. And like I said, I do apologize that my father is not with us, because I would love to hear what he has to say. Because if I think about his life and my life, what he gave me because he decided to go against the regime, he gave me opportunity to study abroad, to study in Massachusetts actually. To gain this higher education, to learn about the world and to see the perspective from a different perspective on my own country from a different country. Yet I know that my father has a very unique way of looking at the world. He can distill it in such precise words that I really love to listen when he describes the world in a very simple fashion of a person who was not meant to be a leader of a country. He was a simple electrician, yet his ideas, his beliefs were something that led him to be a leader of free Poland. And to conclude, my father is an extraordinary person. He never told me, you should do this, you should do that. He said a very simple thing to me once. Listen, there are only two most important things in life. You have to believe in God, and you have to believe in what you are doing. If you have these two things, everything else will be simple thing. It will be easy for you to do. So remember that. He was a person who had nothing, yet he accomplished everything because of his strong beliefs of these two things. So to distill it, human dignity is something that should lead us in our daily lives, but also in our professional lives, and also in support of people who need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Jarosław Wałęsa. Thank you so much. And on this, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude the official part of our today's ceremony. But we do not finish yet. So now we will invite you to a short concert, followed by a reception. It will take a few minutes for the musicians, for the band to set up on stage. So I will just use this time to present you the Burgos project. Welcome. Latin jazz, Afro-Cuban jazz, fusion jazz project rooted in Cuban, Spanish, and Caribbean musical tradition. Inspired by native rhythms of Santiago de Cuba. So let's hope that music will take us for a brief moment to Céspedes Park of Plaza de Marte. Samuel Burgos Mas, musical director, Vita, the singer, and I have Ludwig Alfonso drums and Leo Gil piano.